How did the recession change Arizona's economy?
Post-recession and going forward, we're seeing that the key driver in the future economy will be a company's ability to find skilled workers to fill their needs.
The challenge is building an educated workforce to bridge the talent gap.
It's at our peril that we don't address our education as part of developing a competitive talent pool.
The new face of the economy and economic development. It's Arizona Week.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support. Once again, your moderator, Michael Chihak.
Nearly 250,000 people are seeking work in Arizona but can't find it. Yet thousands of jobs go unfilled because of what's called a talent gap. We spoke with economic development officials about it, but first an analysis of the state's July unemployment report with George Hammond, Associate Director of the University of Arizona's Economic and Business Research Center. Welcome, Dr. Hammond.
Thanks, Mike.
8% unemployment. What's the analysis of what's going on there? A little stagnation in Arizona job growth.
Well, the unemployment rate was stable in July compared to June at 8%, but it is down 0.4% from a year ago. It does remain a little bit above the national average. So we are seeing progress on the unemployment rate. I think the issue to keep in mind, though, is that while the unemployment rate is coming down, we're also seeing declines in the state labor force, and that suggests that unemployed residents are dropping out of the labor force, which is not a particularly great sign in terms of our overall performance.
But year over year, we have seen job growth for the state, correct?
That's right. In terms of non-farm payroll job growth, we actually had a really good month in July. We added almost 70,000 jobs. That's 2.8% job growth, far above the 1.7% rate that the nation posted, again, year over year. So July was a pretty good month, so the question will be, can we sustain that pace of growth going forward? Because through most of 2013, we've been seeing year-on-year job growth in the 2% range.
Does the summer make a big difference in Arizona? We have seen in June and July reductions in employment levels driven largely by school being out, but are there other issues at play there?
Well, that will create impacts in the month-to-month job gains, and that's one of the reasons why, for the most part, I look at year-to-year changes in employment, particularly for the data that we have now.
Now, looking over a longer term, going back to the depths of the recession, nationally, about 75% of the jobs that were lost in the recession have been replaced. But in Arizona, less than half have been replaced. I think the number is about 43%. What's going on there?
Well, what's going on there is that Arizona got hit so much harder during the downturn than did the national economy. Peak to trough, the state experienced a job loss of 12%. So 12% of our jobs disappeared from the peak to the trough. Nationally, the percentage job loss was only about 6%. So Arizona got hit twice as hard as did the national economy. And basically, even though we're growing faster than the US, it's just going to take us longer to dig our way out of that very deep hole.
You mentioned a couple of minutes ago that people are dropping out of the workforce in Arizona, and that may have something to do with what the numbers are doing. Is that a product of the skilled versus unskilled workforce, where we're seeing a lot of jobs going wanting in Arizona, but there aren't the people to fill them?
I think it's related to two factors. One is the relatively slow job growth that we've seen for most of 2013 and really over the past year. You know, our job growth has been in the neighborhood of 2% per year. And that's faster than the national rate, but it's slow for Arizona. You know, Arizona, long term, our job growth has been in the neighborhood of 3 to 4% per year. So I think part of the reason that we're seeing people drop out of the labor force is because the job growth has been, well, it's been positive, faster than the nation. It's been comparatively slow for the state. And I think there is a little bit of a skills gap in the state in terms of individuals who are looking for work may not be matching up particularly well with the jobs that are available. And that's certainly something we need to look at.
Just about a half a minute remaining in that time. Tell me, are efforts at pushing toward that skills gap going to make a difference for us?
Yes. Looking at skills, particularly the skills of the workforce, it will be critical. The education, the skill level in a state or a local area will be one of the key drivers in their long-term economic growth. So that is really somewhere that we need to look very carefully and see what we can do.
George Hammond of the University of Arizona's Economic and Business Research Center, thanks for speaking with me.
Thank you, Mike.
The recession changed strategies for growing the economy. Joe Snell, President and CEO of Tucson's Economic Development Agency, told me about the shift. The economic landscape has changed dramatically in the last few years because of the recession and other factors. Is that also changing the economic development landscape?
It is. And to your point, the economy has not just changed since the recession, it is completely different. I mean, these aren't minor changes. And thus it's changed the economic development landscape dramatically. And it's forcing a new paradigm in economic development. I would venture to say we cannot do things that we did in 2007 today, or we will not be around and successful going forward if we don't make some changes.
So how has that changed the approach of trying to recruit and retain businesses that provide jobs in the community?
I think that the key thing is the drivers, the things that drive the companies to make decisions to either relocate or expand an operation have changed dramatically. Pre-recession, we saw a lot of issues such as location, incentives were driving a lot of the decisions of corporations. Talent. Post-recession and going forward, we're seeing that the key driver in the future economy will be a company's ability to find skilled workers to fill their needs. So that's changing the profession. No longer can economic developers go out and find companies and sell them on a unique location with a certain tax benefit or something like that. We're going to have to get in the business of solving the talent equation. In other words, if we're going to have to be able to demonstrate to these future employers that we have the talent or the people, the workers, with the skills that will fill their needs. So I like to equate this paradigm shift to, in the past, economic developers were known as marketers or recruiters. We're going to have to get into the Match.com or eHarmony of economic development. We're going to have to align the whole workforce system with the traditional economic development system to find a new approach.
You mentioned incentives, and everyone seems to think, or perhaps many people think, that tax breaks, free land, whatever it might be, cheap land, buildings, etc., are the things that draw business. Let's talk a little bit about some of perhaps the myths of economic development. First of all, lower taxes.
Well, I get highly concerned when policymakers say the only approach to make us more competitive is to lower the taxes. And I don't think there's empirical evidence that keep lowering the taxes will drive job creation or companies into the environment. If the taxes of any certain location are out of whack, too high, for example, to the competition, you better lower them. But if they're right in the range with the rest of the competition, it's not going to be enough to drive companies into your location and keep them.
And then financial incentives of other kinds, perhaps rent breaks or inexpensive land, bonds, etc. Those are important, but they're not crucial, right?
I think the misconception is that they are the primary driver in when a company either expands or relocates. They are important. They're important when several locations are on equal footing. It demonstrates a willingness to work with the company. But I do think that they fall nowhere near the priority as the whole talent issue, finding the right type of workers, which far exceeds that in priority.
What industries are you focusing on? Because I know you've narrowed your list to be really focused on just key industries that are suitable to Tucson, but that Tucson can also provide employees for.
Yeah, we've narrowed it down. Several years ago, we went through a blueprint process that matched all of our assets, workforce skills, et cetera, with industries, not just today, but tomorrow, thinking ahead. And we've identified 4 key industries that will shape our future. Aerospace and defense. We happen to have the 5th highest concentration of aerospace workers in the country. So that's something to build on, and we see a lot of those assets with companies like Raytheon Missile Systems on the defense side, to Bombardier on the commercial side. So an industry that, you know, when it's this big and it grows 1%, that's a big lift. So we're spending a lot of time on that. Logistics. Out of the 70 or so projects TREO's worked on in the last several years, well over half of those companies have been logistics related.
And logistics is the movement of goods?
Movement of goods and services. So the Target Fulfillment Center with 1 million square foot under roof that came in 2007, a prime example of that type of industry. We're very fortunate to be in close proximity to California and those major population centers on the West Coast, and more importantly, close to the Port of Long Beach, still the nation's busiest port. And you know, they run right down I-10 to deliver products to further east. Increasingly, Mexico has blossomed as a great place to not only do manufacturing, but to offload goods and services in the port of Guaymas. Maybe something manufactured in China gets offloaded in Guaymas and it's coming north and south. So we're at a nexus point where we can really be an impactful player in this. And then the other 2 are the solar industry, which we've seen some success in, and then most recently the biotech industry, but specifically in the diagnostics field. Companies like Roche Ventana, Sanofi Aventis. The thing we're thrilled about is Accelerate. We were able to lure them in here, and he's up and running, and they're, you know, hiring like crazy. So yeah, we want to make sure we fit our assets with company needs. It's matchmaking on a different level.
What is the talent gap and how do we bridge it? TREO's Joe Snell and Daisy Jenkins, a TREO board member and former human resources executive for 2 big Tucson employers, Raytheon and Carondelet, explained it. Mr. Snell, you've identified what you call a talent gap in Tucson that's a part of your focus for economic development. What is the talent gap, and can you give us some examples of it?
Well, as I said before, the challenge for us is matching available skill sets with company needs. And over the next year, we're going to try to define what that gap is. And we've actually are updating our blueprint, which is a fancy term for a strategic plan. And talent is one of the key drivers for us moving forward. We really believe at TREO that if we can address this gap and get ahead of the curve, we're going to be in a much more competitive position. And we've asked Daisy to, given her deep background, to chair an effort for us to try to get our arms around what that gap looks like and you know, come up with some strategies of how we can close it.
And Ms. Jenkins, a talent gap, but there are so many people out of work. What's the disconnect there?
Well, it's interesting, getting back to being employed as an HR executive. Talent is one of the areas, well, it's the primary responsibility. And I can't tell you how many nights I spent awake thinking about talent. And so you think about the unemployment numbers and you automatically, or people assume, oh my goodness, there's no problem with hiring. The issue is getting the right people with the right talent. And so you have unemployment, but many of those unemployed, unfortunately, don't have the skills and competencies that companies need today to remain competitive.
So, Ms. Jenkins, how do you close that gap? What are the things that need to be done from a business point of view, from an economic development agency point of view, from a community point of view, to start closing that gap?
Yeah, and this is really why I'm very excited about the TREO initiative, because we will bring together, TREO will bring together a cross-section of the community, business community, education, community organizations, to create an actionable plan that will enable us to address the talent issues within our region, and also to ensure that talent becomes a competitive advantage for the Tucson region, not only domestically, but we're in a global marketplace as well.
Mr. Snell, would you call this a tried and true approach? Is this something that is sure to build the economy and to build the workforce in Tucson?
Well, I believe that talent is driving all market decisions today and will increasingly do so in the future. I think many cities, ones I've been associated with, abandoned really the primary recruiting the companies. It's chicken or egg thing. Recruit the companies first, then find the talent. I can tell you when I was in Denver, and Denver's one example. I think Austin, Texas would be another example. Their economic development strategy is really geared around recruiting talent with the premise that the companies will follow. And so, I think that we're going to find somewhere in the middle that works for us with that. There's a reason we build downtowns and we need adequate healthcare systems. It's because it's a competitive world, and that talent is looking for future markets that are going to provide the services they need. We just, Daisy and I participated in the TREO retreat, and we brought in a speaker that wrote a book, When the Boomers Bail. And the book very adequately illustrates that the baby boomers have not replaced themselves. We're heading on a trajectory where we're going to have more people exiting the workforce than are entering. And so the power shift has occurred where the people that have the skills are going to be driving all the decisions. They're going to get to choose where they want to live, and it's going to create a situation where communities are going to have to supply everything they need because they have all the power.
What will be your first step on the task force that you're heading to start this process?
Right. So it would be to bring together members from the business community, from academia, from organizations like Pima County One Stop, Southern Arizona Leadership Council, and others. So this is TREO leading a community-wide initiative because this has a community-wide impact. And so it's first is to gather data, the most relevant current data as to the issues, the successes, the threats that local employers are facing in regards to their hiring needs. And how do we best address those needs? Recognizing that there's no way we're going to be able to address all of the professional skills and talent needs locally. So it also says that we have to enhance our appeal, our attractiveness to the national talent pool. But again, the focus is to, as much as possible, create a strong talent pool within our community, and again, supplement that or enhance that by bringing in external talent.
Mr. Snell, what do you say to people who say, why are we bringing in talent? Why don't we just train local workers, local people, so they can take these jobs?
Well, in some cases, some of the skills that are not being met that employers need are highly specialized. And the lag time of training somebody from point A to point B might take 2 years, and companies aren't going to wait 2 years. So, a healthy economy, we should be training all the people we have, and the goal to take everybody that's unemployed that wants to work off of unemployment. And it's not a 2-year process, it's a long-term process.
And Ms. Jenkins, the key partner here is the educational process?
The education, obviously education is one of the key components of developing viable talent and competitive talent pool. And we have to look at that not only from the higher education institutions, the University of Arizona, Pima Community College, but we also, if we're really forward thinking, we've got to look at our K through 12. And how are we equipping those students not only to be eligible for employment, but for those who want to go to college, and not all of them should go to college, but to even be able to meet the standards for attending college. And let's face it, we haven't done a good job of that. And it's at our peril that we don't address our education as part of developing a competitive talent pool.
Many in business and education are working to fill the talent gap. A prime example is Pima Community College's Aviation Technology Center. Here's Program Manager Tom Hinman. We're in a classroom here, right?
Michael, you are in the classroom at the Aviation Technology Center. This is a 17,000 square foot hangar. It's built and staffed and equipped to mimic the working environment that the students are going to go to work in after they leave us.
And how many students take classes here?
There will be a little over 115, somewhere between 115 and 125 on August 27th, our next start date.
And how long does the program of study last for them?
Well, there are several programs, 3 in particular, and depending on which program a student joins, it'll be as short as 19 months or as long as 26 months.
And at the end of that, they get a certification, they take an exam with the FAA.
Oh, that's exactly right. Our programs offer certificates for direct employment, associates of applied science, and they all have a licensure element from the U.S. government.
And then they can get a job. And they get jobs, right?
They do. I think our last graduating class, some 16 out of 20 interviewees got a job at Bombardier, making somewhere between $18 and $18.75 an hour.
And that's over $30,000 a year.
It is.
Pretty good starting pay for somebody with an associate's degree, right?
Oh, I think it's outstanding, and that's just the beginning. About 1/3 of their wages every year will be overtime. Sadly, you can only work an airplane when it's on the ground. So if the airplane's down for 2 weeks, the typical technician is expected to be there on spot doing the work until the airplane can fly away. So a $36,000 job just became $54,000, and that's where they're going to be, roughly 50 grand, 45 to 50 grand.
Tell us what we're looking at behind. This airplane is a 737?
Close. It's a Boeing 727 airplane. It's the grandfather of the modern day commercial fleet. All of the original technology, all of the technology that exists today was vetted on this aircraft, and it was a deliberate choice by us. In fact, you can find the same components on the 787.
So you use this airplane basically as something that the students learn to work on?
Oh, certainly. It is a training aid. The majority of the systems that are on that thing actually run the hydraulics, the pneumatics, the air conditioning.
There's a lot of science, technology, engineering, math involved in being an airplane mechanic, if you will, or being an aviation technician. So we're talking about that increasingly important STEM education for these students, correct?
Oh, that's exactly right. STEM is embedded into everything that we do, science, engineering, technology, math. The basic laws of science are worked through. The engineering here is takes those basic laws and puts them more and more into practice. And I think that when you get to the technology part, that's where we're strongest. That is the modern day application of the engineering and the science that go into this field. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. The math in particular is a neat way to explain what it is we're trying to do here. Math for these students is not just numbers. They're a size, they're a shape, they're a weight, they're a thickness, they're a volume, they're a distance. And when the practical side of the technology comes into view for these students, they grasp it, they understand it, and they take off.
Tucson has a high number of employees, of workers in the aviation and aerospace industry. And is this a chicken and egg deal? Is it that this program was here so the businesses started relocating, or the businesses were here demanding a trained workforce and this program came about, or is it some of each?
If you were to actually measure it out, you would find that in the late 80s and early 90s and even up to today, there was a large nomadic population that the businesses that were located here in southern Arizona would go out and they would have jobs, but nobody in the local community that could fill them. So they would be forced to go to California or Texas or Colorado to get skilled aviation technicians, and they would bring them here. Of course, these aviation people had no roots here. Their families were in other states, so they didn't stay very long. And the monies that were paid to them and via wages, etc., went out of state as well. So there was a push put afoot by the local businesses to begin to grow our own, and this program is a result of that. For us, the customer is the purpose, the student's the customer, the university is the customer, and the employers in particular are customers.
And those employers support you in a number of ways.
Oh, they do.
They provide equipment, material, they probably make suggestions to you on curriculum. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, we have an advisory board that meets twice a year. It's filled with impactful members of the local aviation community, Bombardier, Ascent, Marana Aerospace, Universal Avionics, just to name a few. And those people give us great foresight and ability to steer our programs to meet their entry and mid-level employment needs. So it's really good. Not only that, they do donate equipment. FedEx, for example, just gave us about $880,000 worth of airplane. Universal Avionics was kind enough to donate around $50,000 in avionics equipment. No small drop in the hat.
And then those students, once they get their training and their associate's degree and pass their certification, they go to work for those companies, right?
They do. The majority of the students stay here in southern Arizona. By far the majority. I think there were 23 students that graduated early part of March, for example, and 20 of them had jobs here, and 19 of them had jobs here in southern Arizona, the Tucson area, when they left us.
What do you say to a current high school student who might be thinking about getting into this program? What does he or she need to be doing in the way of preparation to qualify for this program?
Wow, yeah, that's a great question. Two things. One, the secret in life is not to pay somebody to let you do what you like to do, like buying the video game and playing it on the TV. The secret in life is not to pay someone to let you do what you like to do. The secret in life is to get someone to pay you to do what you like to do. And if you're mechanical in any way, if you really enjoy information technology, you're a computer whiz, you understand programs, you want to understand programs, you want to understand what makes the box go. If you are artful, creative, you draw, you play an instrument, those kinds of qualities lend themselves to this field. Exactly. And I guess the second thing that I would say is that there's no time like the present to start. The earlier you start, decide what portion of the business, or any business for that matter, that you would like to go in. What are those jobs? What is the education that you need to get to secure a job like that? And start early. Don't wait. There's lots of competition.
My full interviews for tonight's program are on our website, azweek.com. That's our program for Friday, August 16th, 2013. For Arizona Week, I'm Michael Chihak.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support.